Hey guys, Aaron Cybertron Zang here, and today I am finally bringing you my team analysis and my breakdown for the Torkoal team that I featured in the beginning of Road to Ranked. Of course, if you've not seen this team in action and are curious, you could definitely check it out by watching the first couple of episodes of Road to Ranked, and I will link that playlist in the description below. And of course, that is the series where I basically play games on BattleSpot on Wi-Fi. So yeah, I know it's been a while. Sorry for all of you guys who have been waiting for it, but yeah, this is just going to be me talking about each individual Pokemon, kind of the team building process, and some suggestions I would make if I had to change individual Pokemon and the team overall. So hope you guys find this video helpful, and please leave a like on the video if you do enjoy it. Of course, I will be working on my San Jose team breakdown as well, and that will come out in the next couple of days. So stay tuned for that. And thank you for supporting the channel and watching all the content. Of course, Road to Rank still on a daily basis, but I'm trying to work on a lot more stuff while I'm home over break. So without further ado, let's just jump into it. So if you have watched my team building guide and my team building video, which I will also link in the description below, then you should know that this was actually the team that I kind of put together when I was making that guide. So, I was making a guide to help people build their teams in VGC 2017, and I was like, you know what, might as well just highlight the team building process by putting one team and my first team in VGC 2017 together and highlighting basically how I constructed that team. So if you've seen that video, then you'll probably already know everything and how I kind of came together with it. But basically, I really wanted to use a Trick Room team because Trick Room is one of my favorite strategies, and you actually use it at the World Championships the last 3 times I competed. It's super strong, and I think it's even better in 2017 due to the amount of slow Pokemon and nice Trick Room users that you can use. So I actually started with Torkoal and Oranguru, and that's because I thought Torkoal was just a really strong Pokemon. Eruption historically has been one of the strongest moves in the game. We've seen it on Primal Groudon, for example, in VGC 2016. Back in VGC 2013, I used a Fire Gem Eruption Heatran to get 3rd at the World Championships that year, and it's just something that I'm kind of familiar with. Torkoal kind of operates similar to the Heatran I used back then, so I had some experience, and I knew, exactly how to set it up, and it's really nice because it gives you a means of weather, and weather is so common now in 2017. And I wanted to use Oranguru as my Trick Room user instead of something like Porygon 2 or Mimikyu. The main reason why I chose Oranguru is because it gets access to Instruct, and I think Instruct is a really good move, especially when you're combining it with a Pokemon as strong as Torkoal. Because Torkoal takes advantage of spread attacks such as Eruption and Heat Wave, combining that with Oranguru means you can really just nuke your opponent, and even Pokemon that resist these fire type attacks still take a ton of damage with the, you're attacking twice and you have the Sun boost if you win the Weather War. So it was a really, really good core, and I wanted to try out Drampa just because I thought it was a really cool Pokemon, and I thought that it was a very effective Trick Room sweeper. So that was kind of the core. Now, after I saw those 3 Pokemon, I was like, okay, this makes a lot of sense, but I definitely need to make it not so reliant on Trick Room. Right now, if I don't set up Trick Room, then Torkoal and Drampa just kind of get outsped and knocked out by stuff. So Salamence was a kind of intuitive pick for me because I've actually used Spec Salamence before back in 2014 on one of my favorite VGC teams really of all time. And Spec Spence was really good back then, and I thought that people were kind of underestimating Salamence's power in this metagame. Now, Spec Spence, of course, its attack is actually higher than its special attack, and so I thought that Modest and kind of max special attack was the way to go. I used Timid back in I used Modest, back in 2014 as well, and it just hits for really hard damage, especially with Draco Meteor. And so now I had a Pokemon that was relatively speedy, gave me Intimidate support, and allowed me to hit really hard, so I could eliminate a threat and then set up Trick Room. To close out the core, I added a Tapu Bulu because I did want a Tapu, and I wanted something that was a little bit slower and fit onto Trick Room. So, for example, Tapu Koko and Tapu Lele, both of those are pretty speedy and are on the higher spectrum. Feeny and Bulu were the 2 I was considering, but Bulu made a little bit more sense since at this point I was still pretty weak to water-type Pokemon, so Bulu was the 5th Pokemon. And finally, to round things out, I added Lilligant to give the team 2 main modes, because I thought, Lilligant, Torkoal, and Oranguru, that's a super tricky kind of team to play against in team preview, because your opponent basically has to play mind games and guess, okay, are they going to lead Torkoal Lilligant, or are they going to lead Oranguru with Torkoal in the back? And those 2 modes play out completely differently, and it's very hard for a lead to counter both of those leads. And so, Lilligant just gave me another option, and it was really, really dynamic. Also just a huge threat because after you Eruption would sweep through team. So really fun option, and basically I ended up with like 3 super slow Pokemon and 3 Pokemon that were a little bit speedier. So I do want you to keep in mind that excuse me, this is not the perfect team by any means. this was literally the first team that I threw together in the format, and it was just something I wanted to try out more for fun than anything else, just to get my feet wet with the metagame. So, there are definitely flaws, and I'm going to address, some changes I would make potentially to the sets that I do have on this team as I go along with the video. But yeah, it's definitely the point of me making this video, so you guys get a look into some of my sets and how I kind of construct teams in general, especially this team in particular. And of course, you can feel free to try out any of the sets. They are in the description below in Showdown exportable form. So without further ado, let's actually talk about the Pokemon. So, of course, Torkoal is the main star of the team, and this one, actually, I didn't list the IV specific to Hidden Power because I actually changed the variant I was using on Showdown, but it's very simple. I chose the Charcoal item because it boosts Fire-type attacks, and Eruption and Heat Wave are your main means of offense. I didn't want something like Life Orb because, of course, you're losing HP, so that reduces Eruption's damage, and Torkoal's a pretty bulky Pokemon, so didn't really want it to be taking extra tip damage by my attacks. I didn't want something like Choice Specs because if you lock yourself into attack, then, Torkoal something that really appreciates protecting here and there, especially when surrounded with Lilligant or Rangaroo, because, for example, in the case of Lilligant, you can protect Sleep Powder. So it made the most sense to have Charcoal, which boosts your Fire-type attacks and, doesn't have any drawbacks. So Eruption and Heat Wave, both pretty obvious attacks, and I went with Protect, obviously, as well. For the fourth attack, I actually went for HP Ice, but I would probably change that to Fire Blast or Flamethrower, and yeah, that's a little bit weird because you're running triple fire, but the thing is, that covers basically any Wide Guard users. It also allows you to just hit single target for even more damage, and so that was something that I was attempting to try out. There's some other moves, and I'll talk about, fixes as in a separate slide, but, that was the main thing. Like, HP Ice was kind of interesting, but something that I would probably fix. But yeah, I went with max HP and max special attack. It was because, Torkoal's one of those Pokemon where it's like, okay, I don't feel the need to have any, like, specific defense or special defense investment, and max special attack just allows it to hit as hard as possible. So, talking about, potential changes, like I said, I was trying out Flamethrower and Fire Blast on a team separate from this one when I was trying out Torkoal. Both of those were really strong options. Solar Beam is pretty interesting because it does threaten water types, and if they don't have, for example, Rain, then you can pretty safely Solar Beam. And, for example, Gastrodon is becoming so popular right now in the format, so it's a move that makes some sense. Like I said, you could definitely contemplate trying out different items like Life Orb or Specs, but for this team, I really wanted Charcoal. And if you wanted to make changes, I would say maybe remove some HP EVs for defense or special defense investment. But in general, I think Trick Room Torkoal should be built somewhat similar to this. Just you can have some finesse with the EV spread and the item choice and maybe your last move. But in general, like Eruption, Heat Wave, Protect, that's pretty standard, and an item that basically boosts your damage output because you really want to just add all these plus special attack boosts together. So moving on, we do have a Rangaroo, the next Pokemon, and this one was a really, really fun Pokemon to use, and I think it's still a little bit underutilized in VGC 2017. Everyone seems to be flocking to Porygon 2 right now, and, that makes good sense. Porygon 2, not only is it a great Trick Room user, but also has excellent recovery and recover, and if you get a download boost, you hit for really hard damage in the special attack spectrum as well. But, like I said, I chose a Rangaroo because of Instruct, and of course, Instruct allows you to basically attack again with one of your Pokemon. Also can double down and use it against your opponent, which can be a pretty fun gimmick. So, moveset of Instruct, Psychic, Trick Room, and Protect, pretty standard. I went with Inner Focus because I felt no need for Telepathy, but Telepathy is an incredible ability and makes sense when you're using moves such as Earthquake or Discharge. Of course, pretty common moves given the Pokemon in this format like Garchomp, Crocodile, Tapu Koko, for example. So this was kind of a generic bulk spread. I don't remember exactly what it accomplishes, but it really allows you to survive both on the defense and special defensive spectrum. I went with max HP and kind of just split it between defense and special defense. I think there's definitely a more optimal spread out there, but this was just something that was working when I first kind of built it, and I was like, you know what, I'll just stick with it. So yeah. And Mentorb was my item of choice, and I think Mentorb or Citrus Berry are probably the two best items for a Rangaroo, but I went with Mentorb because I ran into a Taunt user once, and I couldn't get up Trick Room, and I was like, man, that really sucks. I really would love to get Trick Room up. But ultimately, when I was playing on Road to Ranked, I don't think I ever got taunted once in like the 20 or so games that I played with this team. So Citrus is definitely something to consider, but Taunt is getting a little bit more common, especially with Trick Room running around more often, so that's why I ended up with Mentor. But overall, I like the moveset a lot. So in terms of possible changes, I would contemplate maybe swapping the Mentor for Citrus Berry, like I mentioned. You could also add some special attack EV investment. I believe just with 20 special attack EVs, you can one-hit KO Salazzle 100% of the time. It's not really that relevant of a damage calc, but in case Salazzle, gets more common, especially once Pokebank comes out, might be something to consider. And finally, I was actually really contemplating Sunny Day on this Rangaroo because weather is getting more common, and at the time when I was playing on Road to Rank, like, we didn't really run into any rain, we didn't really run into any sand, but weather is really strong in this format, and every weather option works. For example, I was using Pelipper Golduck on Road to Rank, this team has Torkoal, Gigalith won, of course, the UK Nationals, and then Ninetales was in the top 4 of the UK International, and so every weather is viable, and as a result, like, a lot of people, they're like, oh, let me just switch in my weather user and just shut Torkoal down immediately. That's not the case if you have Sunny Day on a rain group, because you can just Sunny Day Eruption immediately, and that not only increases your firepower, but it also decreases a lot of their utility. For example, with rain, they don't hit nearly as hard as they do anymore. With sand, they don't have that special defense boost, and with hail, they can't blizzard safely anymore. So I think Sunny Day actually would have been a really good move if I were playing this team later on in the meta, because now everyone's trying to out-weather, and it's a pretty nice check to weather. So something cool to consider if you want to use this rain group. So third Pokemon, of course, is Lilligant, and this Lilligant had a Focus Sash, of course, Chlorophyll, had a modest nature, and I actually just went with max special attack and max speed, but that's probably not necessary. But the main thing I was thinking is, okay, because I have the Focus Sash anyway, like, I'm going to take 2 attacks, so might as well just max out on special attack and speed in the off chance I run into a mirror match. I actually went with max special attack and modest because I had HP Ice, so that has an okay chance to just knock out Salamence outright, and I think against Garchomp, it's definitely a damage roll, but with Timid, I was never picking up Knockout. So with Modest, I was, at least coming a little bit closer. And the thing is, Timid doesn't really outspeed anything I need to anyway, because, like, Modest with Chlorophyll, you're already outspeeding everything with the speed investment. So I went with the moveset of Sleep Powder after you, HP Ice, and Protect. Once again, if you're running Lilligant with Torkoal, like, Sleep Powder after you and Protect are probably all necessary. And then the fourth move is really up for grabs, which I'll talk about in just a second. But overall, yeah, I like Lilligant a lot, and this was mainly used for Sleep Powder and after you. HPS, of course, was used to check the occasional Garchomp and Salamence, but the combo of After You and Sleep Powder is deadly, because if you could hit a Sleep Powder against a major threat, then Torkoal can just kind of erupt away. So, yeah. In terms of possible changes for Lilligant and other Lilligants that have been seen in the metagame, once again, like I mentioned, you might want to swap out HP Ice, and Leaf Storm is typically the most common move. And other items besides Focus Sash that I considered, Gracium Z if I was using Leaf Storm, because you suddenly have a very, very offensive Lilligant, which can kind of nuke things immediately. But of course, if you have Gracium Z, then you don't have Focus Sash, and that means that often it's harder to get multiple attacks off, because Lilligant is a relatively frail Pokemon. Wide Lens, of course, like I meant, actually I don't think I've mentioned Wide Lens yet, but I was actually trying out Wide Lens Lilligant Torkoal when I was testing for London International, because the thing is, like, 75 accuracy is just not very good. It doesn't get much better with Wide Lens, but, every percentage point matters when it comes to accuracy in VGCs. So it did make Sleep Powder a little bit more reliant, and I hated, like, using Sleep Powder in general, but it's such a good move. And so I had a little bit more peace of mind when I did have Wide Lens. Other considerations, switching from Modest to Timid, for example, for the mirror match, because I was running into a fair amount of Lilligant Torkoals, and I actually played, I think, 3 over in London, which was pretty shocking. But I'm not sure if that's, an excellent change, and I really haven't seen any Lilligant Torkoals for quite a while now, so it's probably not necessary. And finally, removing speed EVs for some more bulk, but like I mentioned, with the Sash variant, there wasn't really any need for bulk, so I was like, might as well just max out speed, but it's definitely something to consider. So, moving on, the fourth member of the team was Drampa, and this is a really cool Pokemon. Drampa actually won the San Jose Regional Championships on Gavin Michaels' Trick Room team, and it's a really strong Pokemon. Life Orb Draco Meteor from it does so much damage, and I opted for a moveset of Hyper Voice, Draco, Flamethrower, and Protect. Kind of weird to use Hyper Voice on an actual normal type Pokemon, but it was pretty nice in terms of spread damage, and it actually makes a lot of sense when you have a Ranguru in the kind of combination as well, because, double Hyper Voice is just really hard, and spread moves plus Instruct it just does so well. So it made a lot of sense. So I went with Flamethrower over Fire Blast for the last one, just because I liked accuracy, and I did have the Sun Firepower already from Torkoal, so there was some synergy there. Pretty basic EV spread as well, max HP, max special attack. There wasn't any attack in particular that I was like, oh, I really need to EV particularly for it, so I might as well just cover your overall bulk with max HP. And obviously you want max special attack with a Pokemon such as Drampa, because it's a Pokemon that basically wants to sweep as quickly as possible once Trick Room goes up. So Berserk ability over Cloud9, because you don't want Cloud9 in a team with weather, but overall, really fun Pokemon to use. terms of possible changes, I think there are a lot of other strong offensive attacks to consider, such as Fire Blast, Energy Ball, or Dragon Pulse, but I like my moveset given the team composition that I had. And Cloud 9 on Drampa actually works really well if you're not using a weather user and you want to counter other weather teams, and that's actually what Gavin Michaels ran on his team, but I did not want Cloud 9, obviously, because I had the Sun. So, yeah, I really wanted to just be able to, even boost my Flamethrower attack more, or my Flamethrower damage output more through the Sun. The fifth Pokemon was Tapu Bulu. This is definitely an underexplored Pokemon, and we've seen some bulkier variants. Of course, World Champion Wolfie Glick used it at London, and he had a bulkier variant. But I kind of went for an offensive one. The one on Road to Ranked, I actually... it was a little bit more bulky because, I like EV'd it bulkily, and then I was like, oh, I don't have time to really, or not that I don't have time, but I might as well just stick with it. So it was more on the bulkier spectrum, but max HP and max attack was kind of the set that I wanted to go with. And I went with an admin nature, so I didn't go with like Brave Zero Speed because I like being kind of in that speed tier where it's like, oh, I don't have any investment, but I could still outspeed things around Tapu Bulu's speed tier. Because Drampa is really slow, so is Torkoal. And I went with a moveset of Wood Hammer, Horn Leech, Stone Edge, and Protect just to get as much damage off as possible. Leftovers plus Horn Leech plus Grassy Terrain was actually a really sick combination because you could heal so much after the turn. So it's kind of weird because Wood Hammer, you're losing HP, but Horn Leech plus the recovery was super, super nice. Overall, this Tapu Bulu is far from optimized, but it was a really fun Pokemon to use because even without an item like Life Orb, you still hit for so hard because of Grassy Terrain, and with max attack, it still kind of hits like a truck. So fun Pokemon to try out. Tapu Bulu is definitely something I want to explore more because I've used Coco and I've used Lele a fair amount now, but Bulu I think just has so many options in this metagame. So in terms of possible changes, I would definitely try to come up with a better EV spread, maybe put some more speed investment or diversify my bulk a little bit. Other item choices definitely consider, like Grassy Seed or Grassium Z. I didn't have a Z move on this team, and that's probably something that I would try to fix, and I think Grassium Z would be pretty deadly because Grassium Z Wood Hammer from max attack Tapu Bulu, that is just wrecking left and right. And finally, I was considering some move changes as well, such as Superpower or Mega Horn over Stone Edge. Stone Edge is nice, but its accuracy is just really bad, and I can hit almost as hard with Superpower or Mega Horn anyway, and it gives me some different coverage, so definitely something I was considering as well. And for my last Pokemon, I went with a Choice Spec Salamence. Like I mentioned, this is actually the exact same Salamence that I used back in VGC 2014. That year, I went 4-2 at the World Championships and placed in the top 18, and I won the Philadelphia Regional Championships with the same Salamence set. And back then, I came up with it with my friend Alex Gomez because Hydreigon was being used everywhere. Specs Hydreigon was everywhere, and it was always Modest Nature, and I was like, Salamence outspeeds it, and it can just knock it out immediately, so might as well just try it out. And so that was kind of where the idea came from, and I carried it over to 2017 because, once again, Intimidate is one of the best kind of abilities in VGC. It's always been one of the best abilities, and we see a lot of Arcanine running around, but I wanted something that was a little bit more offensive. It's really nice to have a super strong hitting Pokemon on a Trick Room team that's not a Trick Room user or a Trick Room sweeper, because it means, okay, I have something fast, I can immediately pick up a knockout. Chances are that Pokemon's going to get knocked out pretty quickly, but if you train knockouts, then it frees up your Trick Room user, and basically, it's really hard to kind of target down both a strong hitting Pokemon like Salamence and a Trick Room user, and you have to divert your attention to one of the two. So I really like the Salamence set. The moveset might seem a little bit weird because it's double Dragon and double Fire, but the reason for that is because Draco Meteor is the strongest attack. You always want that, but sometimes you don't need the 90% accuracy. For example, sometimes you just need a Dragon Pulse to finish things off against Dragon types, and you don't want to risk the 10% accuracy, so might as well just go with it. And the double Fire type attack, it makes even more sense on this team because I have Torkoal and I have a way to boost its damage output even further. But Fire Blast is like, okay, I want to use this if I guarantee a knockout, and Flamethrower, for example, can't pick up that knockout, but Flamethrower is a more reliable, accurate option when I need it. So it was the same moves that I used back in 2014, and I have absolutely zero regrets using it. In terms of possible changes, I think Modest to Timid would definitely give me some, some leeway. And I said Tapu Koko there, I actually meant Tapu Lele, so sorry about that. But yeah, outspeeding Tapu Lele would have given me some more peace of mind because it was really difficult if I led Salamence into it because I didn't have that many great switch-ins into Lele, and if my opponent, for example, predicted me to switch into Torkoal and gone for a Psychic, it was pretty bad. So Lele was definitely a concerning Pokemon, although one of the nice things is you could sacrifice Salamence and get a Trick Room up if you lead Salamence or Rangaroo, and then Torkoal comes in and you just erupt away. But yeah, trying out Hydro Pump, definitely an interesting consideration, but didn't make too much sense on this team. You might want to try out if you do use Specsments, though. And finally, trying out a Life Orb or a Z Crystal set. Wolfie-Glick, of course, did use Devastating Drake, which is the Dragon Z move on his London team, but I just like Choice Specs a lot because you hit for so hard, and yeah, I felt like I just wanted to get as much damage off as possible, multiple consecutive terms, and Specs made the most sense there. So overall, in terms of playing with the team, you can definitely watch me and watch some games of me kind of playing with the team in action if you just watch the earlier episodes of Road to Ranked. I believe it's like episodes 1 through 10. But in general, my favorite leads were definitely Lilligant plus Torkoal and Salamence plus Rangaroo. Main reasons for that is because Lilligant Torkoal applies immense pressure immediately, especially against those, you know, kind of more frail teams or those teams that cannot take fire type attacks very well. And with Hidden Power Ice coverage on Lilligant, I'd be able to check some ground types such as, of course, Garchomp or even other Pokemon. And so that one was like a super fast mode, and it was weird because you normally don't expect Torkoal to be attacking first, but with Lilligant's after you almost always attack first. Salamence or Rangaroo was my other favorite lead because you get the Intimidate off and you get the Specs Draco kind of pressure immediately, whereas Rangaroo also pressures with Trick Room. And so a lot of the times my opponents would focus down Salamence, but it'd be too late because I'd get a Draco off. They would knock out my Salamence for me, making my job even easier, and then I would be able to switch in Torkoal. If you do play with this team and you want to just try out verbatim, like I mentioned, the link is, or the pastebin / exportables in the description below. You know, keep a couple of things in mind. For example, you don't want to be too reliant on Sleep Powder. One of the reasons why, you know, I was actually contemplating bringing Lilligant Torkoal to London, but I didn't because I thought, okay, this is just far too reliant on Sleep Powder, and that's not necessarily the case, but like, it's hard because Sleep Powder can put you in such good positions, but if you miss one, it's absolutely crucial, especially without the Focus Sash. So I'm like, yeah, you know, you do want to be a little bit careful about that because its accuracy is quite shaky. In VGC, you know, you really need to optimize your odds at every point. I would also say, you know, definitely make sure you have a plan if Trick Room is denied. One of the games I lost on Road to Ranked was actually against Shady Penguin, who played really well, and what happened was I just lost a Rangaroo turn 1 from a combination of attacks I did not expect, and then after I lost it, I was like, oh wow, I can't set up Trick Room anymore. Now I just lose the game. So you definitely have to be careful about that. If you do bring Tapu Bulu, you know, it's a really good Pokemon, but it's a Pokemon that definitely wants to win the terrain war, take advantage of its bulk and speed, and kind of switch it in at the right times. And finally, Drampa is an incredible late game sweeper under Trick Room, so if you're able to get it under Trick Room, and it can just launch Dracos or any other attack off, like, it does so much work. So yeah, it's a really good Pokemon, but does really need to be properly supported. So overall, this team was really fun to use. I don't think it's the most competitive, and it definitely has clear flaws. Like, for example, if you're going to a event or a regional and you want to do really well, like, I'm not sure if this is the team that I would bring, but I think there's definitely something to work with here. In general, you also have to be aware, of course, this was made right during the beginning of the format when there was no metagame, and now there's some established metagame, and weather is becoming even more popular than, you know, the beginning. Now we see Pelipper's everywhere. Politoed was on Wolf's team. We've seen Alolan Ninetales, we've seen Gigalith, we've even seen Vanillux, and so the point is here, you know, weather is a little bit tricky, and I'm not saying that you should discount Torkoal, because Torkoal is actually a great counter to opposing weather, especially because it's the slowest weather user, so you can always get it up if you lead weather against someone else. But you know, something like Gigalith gives Torkoal a lot of trouble, and I didn't really run into many Gigaliths when I played, but it's definitely a Pokemon that I was a little bit concerned about, so be a little bit aware of that. Overall, my favorite Pokemon, or my favorite set from all of this, was actually definitely the Spec Salamence, and I think it's something that people should be trying out more or using more, because it's really strong. And overall, I do want to reference Gavin Michaels' San Jose team again. I will link the team because he posted the exportable in the description below as well. But Gavin's team is really cool because I think it's an excellent hard Trick Room team. You know, the only similarity between my team and Gavin's team is that we both use Drampa, and both of our Drampa sets were pretty different from each other's as well in terms of movesets. But overall, I think, like, you know, this team wasn't meant to be just a Trick Room team. It was kind of a Trick Room hybrid team, and you had Salamence, Bulu, and Lilligant, so obviously it wasn't hard Trick Room. But if you're interested in trying out a team that's like just very 100% Trick Room, Gavin's team, like I mentioned, is linked in the description below. I will be featuring that on the next couple of episodes of Road to Ranked as well, so I'm pretty excited. You can stay tuned for that. But yeah, that is going to conclude this team breakdown / analysis. It's not as in-depth as probably future ones I'll make because this wasn't, you know, this team wasn't made for a tournament or anything. It was just kind of something that I threw together for the beginning of the metagame, but it was a lot of fun, and, you know, I feel like these videos are probably helpful to some people out there who don't know kind of how to build sets or want to just try something out to start off with. So I hope you guys did find this video helpful. If you did, please share your support by leaving a like in the video and sharing it with anyone who, you know, might be curious about the team as well. But thank you for watching this video, and I will see you guys next time. And the next team breakdown, my San Jose team, which I was using on Road to Ranked and got top 8 with over in San Jose Regionals, that will be up shortly, so keep your eyes open for that. Anyway, that's going to be it for this one, guys. I'll see you guys next time. Alright, peace.